Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment Questions and Answers edition. I'm Marina, Hyde.
And I'm Richard Osman. Suzanne asked a question. What is the history of eating popcorn when going to the movies? Suzanne, the second I read this question, I thought I want to know the answer to that. How did popcorn get that upgrade of image and that gig?
Popcorn is a really old snack, and they found corn cobs that we use for popcorn in Peru that date back to something like 4,700 BC.
Popcorn is crazy, by the way. Popcorn's one of the weirdest things.
How did you ever find out that would happen?
In the whole world.
Like meringues. How long would you have to do that with egg whites to think, my God, this is actually quite cool?
Yeah, you must have been so angry about something.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do half an hour of this.
Yeah. The type of corn that they use is mostly grown in the American Midwest. Popcorn itself is a very, and it's the association with the movies is very American. Even before then, early 19th century America, it was called something else. They were called pearls or nonpareil or things like this. Eventually, there was a guy called Charles Cretors, and he had a sweet shop. I think it was in Ohio. He had a nut roasting machine, which he adapted, and that's that's how this mad thing, like how they thought, oh right, if you really heat it, and then it will pop.
It's crazy. But Charles Cretors, when he first saw it, just must have gone, I might be the greatest genius who ever lived.
God knows what else he put in that machine before he hit on popcorn.
Can you imagine all the mistakes?
Finally.
Yeah.
Take 56.
Runner beans don't work.
Yeah, okay. So he created this, and then he thought, well, hang on a second, why don't I just attach these to carts? And then so he had he had a mobile unit, which was, as we know, one of the great snack innovations of all time. But the main thing is, in the Great Depression, it was very, very cheap. But movie theatre owners were very snooty about popcorn at the time. Remember what movie theatres were like? They were so amazing. Wanted it to be the art form of the people, but they put like carpets everywhere. The theatres, there's some, I read this book there's a great guy, I think these will both be out of print, but I do have these somewhere in my non-unpacked book.
So people can just knock on the door and borrow them.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a guy called John Margulis, and he wrote this book. He wrote one about a sort of majesty of American gas stations called Pump and Circumstance. Okay. And he wrote one called Ticket to Paradise, which was, it's like a beautiful book of all these old movie theatres. Remember, things like the Roxy in New York are so incredible. Like everyone,
where do you find these books?
I don't know. I once went to a talk by this guy at somewhere like Reba, the architect's place. I can't remember, a long time ago. And I loved it, but it was beautiful illustrations. And something like the Roxy, which in New York, which was a complete picture palace. It really was. It was amazing. They nearly went bankrupt building it. It seated 6,000 people. They had organists. There was gilt everywhere. Remember all this stuff. So the movie theatre owners were like, yeah, no, you can't bring your crap in here. You don't. But people started selling it outside. So
what were they selling? Well, you're not allowed to snacks at all.
No, they didn't really want
Nothing.
You to sort of.
Yeah.
No,
it's not a restaurant.
Yeah, it's not
a cinema.
Well,
right?
as we now know,
it is a restaurant.
You're essentially a food court with some sort of digital screening service attached to you. You are in food retail if you work in these places. That's where you make your money. But back then, people would but because it was so cheap and it was the sort of thing that people could still afford to do just about in the Great Depression, which is still a huge boom time for movies. They had the carts outside. People would think this is a great way, we'll sell on the way in. Eventually, the movie theatre owners thought, this keeps happening. We're going to own this. You can buy it inside from now on. And that's how it got that role. But it is actually not that messy compared to what many other different types of snacks are. I actually remember Claudia Winkleman once saying, I've thought of the best snack for kids on a plane, right? And you can't do it if anyone's got a nut allergy on the plane. But pistachios, because they take so long to open each one. Like small children, they take a really long time to open each one. They're not sticky at all. And it's very labour intensive and it's not sticky.
Where the shells, I'd worry about the shells.
Sure. Popcorn isn't that desperate to clean up, and it's really not that bad. But these carpets that they had, even though it was in the Great Depression, things like the Roxy had the world's largest oval carpet, and they'd been sort of hand spun by something. They wanted to make these places complete palaces for the working person, and they are amazing. When you look at these pictures of these things, honestly, like they were going to the Paris Opera. They really kind of put it all out there. So they were a bit snooty, but in the end, they realised they could make money, and that's how it got the job. But it is helped by not being that messy.
But who did flavoured popcorn, sweet popcorn and all that stuff?
Well, the Ruckheim brothers in Chicago in 1870 were they were the original people who just thought, what about if we just made this 100 times more sugary? And they did caramel popcorn.
Wow, the Ruckheim brothers.
Yeah.
God, I love this, and I've talked too often about the first flavourings and crisps, but I never knew about the first flavourings and popcorns.
Well, there you go.
My son always goes half and half.
Yes, I think that's the best
half
one.
salted,
Actually,
half
I've come
sweet.
to realise that is the best.
It's like the revels of popcorn.
Yeah.
Because I had some assumption in my head. I had not spent any time thinking about it, and it's good to hear about it. My assumption was that it was just a snack that didn't make a lot of noise. So
that's helpful as well. That it's
but
not.
it's interesting. It didn't take over from like people were not eating crisps or something, and someone said we need a. It was popcorn was the first one in through the door.
It was but it was because it was so cheap. It's a lot cheaper to make popcorn than it is to make crisps.
The markup on popcorn is insane. What do you think in cinemas when people eat like nachos and things? That to me is...
Again, I've told you, you're in food retail now, and there are loads of cinemas. They'll bring it to your seat. All of these things have changed and upgraded, and they're always trying to sort of sell you these... In the same way that, the two most important things to work out about cinemas is that you're in food retail and kids run movie chains, because that's the genre that makes the most amount of money. You may think all sorts of other things are true, but actually really, I don't love that. And if they're very air conditioned, it can kind of get away with it. But I think I don't completely love it. But people will bring you drinks and coffees and everything.
Yeah, these days. Yeah. If you have a snack like a Malteser, anything with any sort of crunch, anything with any sort of noise, I don't like noise in the cinema, so I hate making noise in the cinema as well. Do you do that thing? And sometimes you can't do it. There's certain films where you're like, oh, great, I can't eat my Maltesers. That I'd only crunch when there's something loud happening on the screen. Yeah. So if you're watching a Marvel movie, it's great because I can have some Maltesers because someone's about to...
You could have got through a lot in Jurassic Rebirth, let me tell you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could have got a lot. Absolutely no problem. You could just bite down every time a dinosaur did.
A very Malteser-friendly movie. But sometimes you go see movies and you think, there's no noise here at all.
It's inappropriate that we have this snack. This subject matter is torturous.
Literally having to suck my Maltesers.
Yeah, there's certain subject matter that is a Malteser sucker. They don't put it on poster.
They should do.
But there should be a rating that just says you will be sucking this.
Elegiac movie.
Yeah.
It's a real Malteser sucker. Yeah, God, I love it. I love an explosion if I've got some pick and mix.
Yeah. Quickly, real fast.
Everyone in the cinema at the same time, just and the second it finishes, just like one person, just three away, just still crunching, and everyone goes, "Come on, man! You've had 17 seconds of a nuclear bomb going off. You're still eating popcorn." Thank you, Suzanne, for that question, because I love a question where I'm desperate to know the answer as well, and I still remember Mr. Creter. But being someone who invents something that massive.
Yeah.
What would he think now if he knew that we were still sort of... He'd go, that was me.
Yes.
And he probably made nothing out of it.
Probably. I think he did fairly well at the time, and he was obviously very innovative with the mobile snack carts.
Are there big popcorn conglomerates? Like, what is big popcorn?
Big Corn, Butterkist.
Butterkist, of course. I was thinking I couldn't think of a popcorn company, but Butterkist. Yeah. I wonder what Butterkist board meetings are like. I often think that with companies like that. But you know what I mean? Like, all they're talking about is popcorn.
Maybe they're just thinking about how can we make the packet smaller. That's what I think a huge amount of confectionery retail nowadays is. What if we kept it the same price and made the packet smaller? That's essentially the job.
Imagine if you work for Butterkist and you listen to this and you've been listening right from the start. We talk about all sorts of industries and you're going, here we go, finally. This is a bit of me.
They know nothing about it. They're just purely speculating. And they were trying to get more into a bag.
Yes, exactly. If you work for Butterkist, do write in. Someone must do, right?
Yeah.
People are working for Butterkist.
It's not just like a sort of self-automated
firm it's not AI,
It's not an automated firm. Someone pressed the button on in 1992 and it just continues to occur. Big Butterkist, please get in touch. There's a question from Mark Brotherton that I want to ask you. He says, I was recently at a Rob Beckett show in Portsmouth.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Mark.
We love Rob Beckett.
We do love Rob.
We truly love him. And when I arrived, I found out that my seat had been moved to the front row. The idea of being picked on by a comedian is a deep fear of mine, and I spent the entire evening avoiding eye contact with him. Do comedians have a system for who they interact with while on stage, and what is the best way to be left alone?
God, that's such a great question. Also, that is the worst nightmare. I always think I'd go to Edinburgh every year, and in that place, sometimes you're in an audience of like 12, and like the odds of you getting picked,
and you're 6'7",
are like pretty high, and you're
so
6'7".
It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, the best thing that ever happened to me was becoming well known on TV, because then people never pick on me. But before then, I'd be picked on by everyone all the time.
If Mark doesn't become well known on television, just say he does. Just say he doesn't create a career for himself on that medium. What's the second best way?
Okay, I get it. And this is such a common fear by people. Audiences know it, comics know it as well. I talked to so many comics about this because I just thought I'd be interested in get different perspectives, and they all had the exact same perspective, which was everyone likes doing a bit of crowd work. It just means every show is different. You can sort of tailor it to an audience. It makes the audience realize that you're making stuff up as you go along as well. But every single one of them said there are two types of people I will always avoid on the front row that I would never talk to. I would never talk to someone who's obviously not making eye contact. So Mark, you did an absolutely grand job there. Yeah. Congratulations. They might talk to your wife, for example, who's sitting next to you, and then you will be dragged in. So anyone who definitely doesn't want to be picked, they can pick up on. But also anyone who desperately wants to be picked. So those are the two classes of people. Every single comic said this to me. It's like someone who doesn't want to be put, there's no fun in that for anyone.
Yeah.
And someone who desperately wants to be picked, I know is not going to be funny because they've probably already got some material that they want to use, and they probably got pretend they've got some hilarious job or something like this, and they've got some comeback that they got for me. So then it always goes wrong. So you just pick someone who's just enjoying themselves. Maybe they've laughed at the first joke you've done, so you know they're on side, they're friendly, or maybe they haven't laughed at the first joke, but you sort of there's a vibe to it. So it's reading that row. I would say you're unlikely to get picked on in a sort of touring comics show. Do
you think people had not booked those seats in the front and that's why they moved, because having no one in the front doesn't look great? Or do you think someone had said, I'm so sorry, I've got a condition, I cannot stand this, I don't want to be in the front?
Always, a comic will get the front row filled up. Always, and right. The first few rows if they can. If there's even two gaps, every comic will tell you it's all you can see throughout the whole performance. If there's someone not laughing at any point, you can see that person, and if there's like spare seats in there, you absolutely see them. So the job of the stage manager and the job of the crew, whatever venue, is to fill those gaps. Normally, they would fill that with volunteers because actually front rows do tend to sell out fairly quickly. So normally that would be filled with volunteers. I don't know what's happened to Mark, where he's been frog marched. That feels a bit harsh. There must have been somebody else around him who had gone, I'd love to be in the front row of a Rob Beckett gig. But I think that people worry far more these days because in clubs, that really is somewhere that you should probably avoid the front row, because in clubs, comics are filming their things. We've spoken about it before.
Yeah.
Putting them online, and they've got all sorts of tricks they can use with people in the front row. But if you're going
Does buying a ticket automatically serve as a release form for that stuff?
Normally it would. Normally there'd be a sign up at the door saying, your likeness might be used in a video. But that would come down to the comedian rather than the club. But that's a very, very good question. So you should write in.
I'll write in.
Write in, and
I'll write into
I will.
us.
They do not want you to have an uncomfortable time.
No.
They really, really don't.
This episode is brought to you by Sky Cinema, the ultimate destination for the latest blockbusters. Speaking of blockbusters, let's talk about something that defied gravity, bewitched critics and fans alike, and has now landed on Sky Cinema.
What could it be? Fast and Furious? No, of course we are talking about Wicked. Wicked is here, the beloved Broadway musical, reimagined for big screen in all its glittering, green-tinged glory.
It's the untold story of Elphaba and Glinda long before Dorothy dropped in uninvited and started flattening the locals. A tale of power, perception and pointy hats, starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. With
breathtaking visuals, iconic songs and a surprisingly sharp take on identity and friendship, it is part spectacle, part social commentary, but fully spellbinding.
2 Oscars, a Golden Globe, critically adored, and wardrobe choices that earn their place in cinema history.
If you want to relive the magic, now's your chance to get swept back to Oz from the comfort of your sofa.
Upgrade to Sky Cinema today to enjoy Wicked, more of the latest blockbusters than anywhere else, and Paramount Plus included at no extra cost.
Search Sky Cinema to find out more.
Andrew Davis says, how long does it take to record each episode of the 1% Club? The lighting presets must take ages after each question, and working out who gets a blue light, who gets a gold light, depending if they answered correctly or not. Plus 101 microphones to control and the people Lee speaks to after each question. I'm guessing a lot of this is cut.
Thank you, Andrew. Funny enough, I saw a couple of episodes being made last week because we were up at House of Games and they film in the next studio, and they were still going when we were finished because we tend to finish quite early. And this speaks actually to we talked on our AI episode on Tuesday about the creativity of people behind the scenes in TV. And the 1% Club, I'm going to say, is the most surprisingly quick television show I've ever seen, because I was exactly like Andrew. I'm thinking this feels like a nightmare because if you don't know the show, it's 100 people. Each of them can be spoken to at any time. Each of them has an individual light on them, and when they get knocked out, the light turns off. Lee talks to people after each show, and you go all the way through until you've got one person left. So I went along to see it. I'll say one thing about it is they only do one a day, which is unbelievable. You can tell when something is a huge hit when they're allowed to only do one a day, because the cost of doing one show a day is immense. But when I heard they did one show a day, I was thinking, oh, of course, it must take 5 hours. Yeah. And it really, really doesn't. So simple things. So, we talk about there have to be 100 lights, and there are 100 lights, and they're all, set to look at individual people. But, an awful lot of that is on an algorithm on a computer. Yeah. And when the computer says that numbers 8, 14, 21, 49 are out, those lights switch off. It's as quick as that. So all the work there has been done before.
Yeah.
All the work has been done beforehand and just gone, okay, I built this system, this incredible system that means anytime you get to the end of the round, the thing that holds us up is not me. It's not my team in lighting. Okay, we have done our job as quickly as we possibly can. And the lighting director on that, Gurdip, he's done a million brilliant things. He's an absolute genius. But again, he's thinking, there may be some delays on this show, but they're not going to be Gurdip delays. Okay, they're going to be somebody else. The sound, I think, is even more interesting because anyone who's ever been near a TV show know that, getting mic'd up, you have a little lapel mic and, you've got your pack and each of them has got individual batteries and, at any given time, certainly 1 out of 100 battery pack is going to be...
It's going to be going down.
It's going to be dying. And actually nobody is mic'd up on that show. What is mic'd up is the set.
Oh.
So all the mics are in the set and those mics are directional. So anyone who is anywhere is essentially, it's already pre-done. Again, the sound crew are going, listen, there might be a delay on this show. It is not going to be our delay because they've done all of their work beforehand and come up with a creative solution. In terms of who Lee talks to, Lee has an iPads instead of cards. So the big, that's the biggest thing that's changed in game shows. And Lee, the producers who are up in the gallery, Andy Auerbach and Dean Nabarro, who put this show together and have had a huge hit with it and been working for years and years, done loads of great things. This is lovely to see them have just something that, is absolutely going all around the world. They and their producers know something about every contestant. Again, all this work is done beforehand. The researchers know something about all of these people. They've been an interesting little fact, an interesting little story. And for any given question, 5 people have been knocked out, 95 people are still in. Lee will have a top 5 people to talk to and something to say about. So you'll see it on the show and Lee will go, so someone's been knocked out. John, but you've been knocked out, your brother is still here. Okay, so the gallery has done that, the researchers have done that. They're not kind of after every question going, oh my God, what can we ask? What could Lee ask? All that stuff is pre-done. Plus also they go, oh, someone who's still left in, Lee, is this guy and he's got an amazing story. So let's make sure we talk to him while he's still in. Yeah. So Lee will have the top 5 people to talk to. He will talk to those people. You might edit in 3 of those, depending on how those conversations have gone. And again, the producers are smart enough that as the show goes on, in that top 5 people, it's not just the stuff they've heard before from the researchers. It's, oh, it was funny when he talked to person X earlier. Let's make sure that's a runner. Let's make sure we continue that conversation. So actually, the whole show is the art of pre-production. Every single thing has been done so brilliantly and so thoroughly that when you get on the floor, I was genuinely shocked with the speed it went, because normally anything with any sort of camera moves or any sort of lighting things or any sort of talking to loads of people, it goes on forever and ever and ever. I just thought, what a crew they've got on this show. It's incredible. So the producers are brilliant. It's a great idea and it's made brilliantly. The question writers are brilliant on that show. But I left that studio thinking, what a crew. This is crazy. The speed with which they go is absolutely mind-boggling. It would
be hard to do maybe more than 1 or 2 in a day, even though they do 1. Because
you could listen. I don't want to tattletale. You could definitely do 2. I'll say that. There's a world in which you could do 3.
There's a world
in which you could do 3. But who benefits? Nobody.
No.
For the crew, they'd rather do 1 a day. For the studio, they'd rather you were doing 1 a day. For Lee, he'd rather do 1 a day. For the contestants, they'd rather do 1 a day because it's all your day. And it's, the only people paying at ITV, and ITV have got a hit. So ITV don't mind so much anyway. So I loved them seeing just 1 a day. I kept walking through because we were doing 5 a day at the same time.
Yeah. And I know you don't like to talk about it.
And you'd walk past the holding pen, and there's like 100 people all getting their briefing at the same time by this amazing woman called Olivia van der Werth, who is sort of an adjudicator on all quiz shows. She's like the god of all quizzes, and she's sort of talking to them about what to do, what not to do. And then there's a cardboard cutout of Lee that everyone gets their photo taken in front of. And that every single day, I walk through the double doors and I think there's Lee. And it's a cardboard cutout of him, but every day I do it. Anyway, that's a little behind the scenes peek. But yeah, it is surprisingly quick, and it's surprisingly quick because it's got an amazing crew. Marina, I have a question here that I think I have views on as well. I suspect you'll have views on it. It's from Alistair Otto. And Alistair says, every so often you see an open letter in the media signed by a list of well-known names calling on the government to act on a particular issue. How does that actually come about? Do these things tend to go through agents and publicists, or is it more informal? Do you ever sign these?
Good question. I've probably signed a couple. It's a nonsense. I really think these things are a nonsense. But anyway, in terms of like how they're actually got together, I'm relatively... I don't know, I'm not even maybe that often asked, but I've been asked all different ways. Sometimes they might go to your agent and your agent might pass it on, or that your agent might think, yeah, I'd protect you from every single one of these that comes via. So I could be being asked lots. I just don't know, because my agents, neither of them pass on ones except in maybe unless exceptionally think it might be align with your interests, I suppose.
Or it's like Mr. Motivator wants to get in touch.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, pass that on.
Yeah, obviously. It goes without saying, just giving my home address. I think that open letters are, to a huge extent, they're performative. They're designed to make the signatories feel better about whatever it is. And I fundamentally don't believe they work. Like, I would love to know the time in history when an open letter... I'm actually thinking of Martin Luther and his 95 Theses nailed onto the door of the church. That's not an open letter. It sort of was an open letter.
Yeah.
Finally got a Reformation out of it. Okay.
Exactly.
But
then went on to be the money-saving expert, of course. So same guy?
Martin Luther, money-saving expert. I mean, he did, some money was saved.
That's a show.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, if that was an open letter. In general, no, I don't think they were. I mean, I remember, God, I mean, obviously there are lots of ones about cultural boycotts. There's lots that happen because of sort of peer pressure, the Bailey Gifford sort of thing, which we covered a bit about festivals.
Lots of AI ones now.
Lots of AI ones. I am not convinced at all. I do think that people's talking heads might make some difference. I don't know. But I really don't think open letters do. I remember during the Brexit campaign where, because the side that I didn't want to win won, but I remember thinking, oh, I was just feeling more and more, because I was thinking, how are they actually doing this? And it would be like, today there is a letter from 100 business owners in the Times. And it'd be like, geez, is this it? Is this the plan? And then today, 150 small to medium enterprise owners have written a letter to the Times. And I remember thinking, again, I mean, I talk a lot about the dead languages of politics, but that to me is like, sorry, there's a letter in the Times. Is this what you think is going to make the difference? Because I just don't feel it is. And I thought it was really weird that was part of a concerted campaign by the Remain campaign, Stronger In or whatever they were called. I remember just thinking, this is meaningless.
That's when you go down to Ladbrokes and bet on leave.
Yeah.
I made the smart decision a long time ago of not having an agent, so it's very hard to get in touch with me. I think usually they're counterproductive. I get it, I understand it, but there's something about it saying we, the undersigned, you're going to be shocked and surprised when you see their names on this list.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking if all these people agree with each other on something, then something's up. And it's a group of people who you think, of course you agree with each other on this. My assumption would be you'd agree with each other on this. And there were a few AI things that came around, and I'd spoken about it, so that people sort of approached me to do that. But nothing really absolutely represents the thing that you think. And also, I always think, who are you trying to persuade and how are you trying to persuade them? I've never been convinced that an open letter to a newspaper, which people then can retweet or whatever, or put on Instagram. I've never been convinced that any of that has ever changed anyone's mind about anything. And so I agree. I'm not sure of the efficacy of putting one's name to it. I get it if you feel angry and you feel you want your voice heard, but often these are people who have a forum for their voices to be heard anyway. And you think you can't just have 100 of you who most people reading this would assume think the same thing anyway, just all saying that. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to the public? The public are not interested. I mean, firstly, they're never going to hear about it. And secondly, if they are going to hear about it, they're going to tut and just go, yeah, of course. Or are you talking to policymakers? And, policymakers are not looking at an open letter and think this is not a tiger that roars. So I understand why people do them. I've never felt the need to add my name to one of them.
Every now and then you think, I think there's been some sort of sea change of this issue, because people who wouldn't have put their name to something like this suddenly are saying, I actually disagree and this certain thing should be allowed to be said simply because of free speech or whatever it is. But it's just like a small kind of bellwether or something. I don't think it's particularly meaningful.
It's usually an open letter saying we should be allowed out at night, and it's signed by 400 cats. And you're like, okay,
yes.
I know you think you should be allowed out at night. Yeah. I get it because you meow constantly.
The other type of open letter I think I hate even more This is the one that Andreas Whittam-Smith, who was a first editor and one of the founders of The Independent, said that a journalist writing an open letter is an act of madness. And it's when you see those letters that people write, Dear Donald Trump, it's like, mate, I just don't think he's going to see this. That is, for me, a hangover to a real kind of a completely different era. And you don't see them quite as much as you used to. They sort of normally come from a place of love. There was a really weird period this was all before the political upheavals of 2016, where I remember there was a spate of like comedians writing open letters to each other, which were basically newspaper columns. And David Mitchell wrote one in The Observer to Steve Coogan saying, I don't think press freedom is under threat by what you're pushing for in there. And then Steve Coogan wrote one back to him, Dear David. Then I think Russell Brand, you'll have to remind me what's happened to him, guest edited an edition of The New Statesman in which he wrote something to readers. And then Rob Webb, David Mitchell's comedy partner, wrote an open letter back to him. I mean, this is quite an odd sort of set of exchanges that are having quite a trend. The reason I think I hate that type of open letter the most is because it's a column that's trying to pretend it isn't one.
Right.
And, just write a column.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, right. This is the most unionised I've ever seen you. You're like, that is not, you are doing a column, but you're pretending it's not a column. But that's fine. Listen,
let's not pretend the column's an art form, because really let's not. But that's what you're doing. But it sort of purports to be going over the head of the people to whom it's actually meant to be read by, which is, I hope, the readers. You would want to send something privately like that. And if you'd like to say something about X, Y, Z, or about something that Donald Trump's doing, don't feel the need to address it. We don't need to conduct a public life in this epistolary fashion. And sometimes it happens less than it used to.
And it does. And sometimes it's a sidebar, but sometimes if I'm asked to write something about a particular area, and I usually respond in saying, I just think there are people at universities up and down this country who really, really, really know what they're talking about on this. And I would be saying the first thing that comes into my head. And listen, I get it. And, I get lots of people nodding, going, that's really, really interesting. But there are super smart people out there who might be better to hear from.
Also, I don't want to do it and I don't have time.
Yes, also I don't want to do it and I don't have time.
That reply purports to be something as well.
I am watching the snooker.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will have literally no snooker time if I do this. So I have to, in the end, make hard choices.
Yeah. Or I started it, I got 3 paragraphs in, and I ran out of things to say. I thought, maybe get someone intelligent to write this for you instead. So some comics don't seem worried about that, do they?
No.
Although, do you know what? Some comics, not many, some of them are super smart anyway. But, sometimes you read things, you think, maybe someone else could have written that. I don't know. I like your columns, though. I do like those.
Somebody else could have written all of those, I can assure you.
Should we finish with a short one, a very apt short one? Andy Hunt says, it is well known that Orlando Bloom had very few lines in Lord of the Rings, but it was still, in my opinion, a great performance. In your opinion, what are examples of great performances where an actor had either very few or many, many lines?
Andy, thank you. Okay, so yes, he's Legolas, he's the elf. He looks great. Was it an epic performance? I'm not quite sure. An epic film and
he's got 17 lines.
Has he?
In that movie, in total, 17 lines.
But looks the part. Famously the shortest time ever to win an acting Oscar is Beatrice Straight in Network. She's on screen for 5 minutes and 2 seconds, and it's an incredible scene. She plays William Holden's wife, and he's basically telling her he's leaving her, and it's just this unbelievable little scene in their apartment. But it's so epic, and it's anyway, she couldn't believe it. And of course, when she got it, she said the script was amazing, and this is how I got the Oscar. That best supporting is a category you can get away with very, very little for. I mean, think Isabella Rossellini. I've just suddenly remembered this. She was up for Conclave. I mean, I don't know how many lines she had. She didn't win it.
Not many.
She had so few lines in that. And I was sort of astonished that they had even, but I think that, they thought she's wonderful and we should have given her something before. So they put her in. Judi Dench in Shakespeare in Love it's not 6 minutes. It's under 6 minutes. She got the Oscar for that. I'm trying to think of the other ones. For the actual Best Actor Oscar, Anthony Hopkins got one. For Hannibal Lecter, that's a very short performance. That's something like 16 minutes, 15 minutes.
Compelling, though.
Yeah, unbelievable. But I remember at the time, there was a lot of talk about how lots of the sort of supporting actor categories that year were on screen for much longer and had many more lines. So yeah, the supporting category is like Anne Hathaway got one for being Fantine in Les Mis, and I can't remember the various other ones, very short ones. Long things. Now, Jim Carrey used to say more words than anyone in films, and he averages 5,338 words per movie.
Is that right? He's like the most speaky actor.
Talks fast. I mean, it helps if something like, if you've got a voiceover, that always is going to help you.
Also comedy as well, and shtick and bits, and there's lots of business in those films, and he's racing through them, rattling through stuff. So I guess it's a lot of words per minute.
Yes. I think the most is Robert De Niro in Casino, and he has 26,798 words.
Wow. That doesn't seem that many to me. When I think about audiobook readers and books like 90,000 words, and you think De Niro's doing 26,000, that's the most anyone's ever done. That's like a quarter of an audiobook.
But think how many times he's had to say each of those words.
Of course, they have to do it 5 or 6 times.
All the coverage. Yeah. And all the ADR. He's probably said about, I don't know, what do you think he said? He's probably said 200,000.
Yeah, Bobby, I take it back. Take it back.
He's a grafter.
Yeah.
But yes, the supporting category is really where the gold mines for that are. And that absolute shortest one, Beatrice Straight, honestly, it's one scene.
Do you think that Orlando Bloom's performance, do you agree with Andy Hunt's opinion that it's a great performance?
No, I told you, I think he looks absolutely perfect, and there's something very ethereal about him and the hair and all of that, and that particular stage of his beauty, he is perfect for that. So it's incredibly arresting, and I think it's captivating, but I don't think it's
captivating, but you're not about to sign an open letter about it.
I'm not about to see him not recognised by the Academy.
Yeah. Dear Sir, we the undersigned,
a retrospective career achievement Oscar for Orlando Bloom,
please. Signed Sir David Putnam, Stephen Hawking.
Anyhow, I think that does actually wind us up for today, Richard.
Lovely. It's always good to be wound up. We have a special bonus episode tomorrow. We're starting our greatest British sitcom of all time episodes. We begin tomorrow with some of the runners and riders for what might be the greatest British sitcom of all time. That's for our members, and you can join at therestorsentertainment.com.
And if you have any questions for us, please keep them coming to therestorsentertainment@goalhanger.com, and we will endeavour to answer them or go to people who also know the answers.
Yeah, I'm also very happy if you want to ask opinion questions, because I always want to know what Marina's opinion is on various things. The more obscure, the better, because it's stuff that we wouldn't be able to do on the main show.
And otherwise, we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.